Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette, and I know you know that. I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting here in this chair. Folks, I'm a very lucky guy. And it's because you folks out there are doing all of these fantastic things, liking, subscribing, sending DMs. It's been absolutely amazing. When we made the move to 5 days a week, you folks really showed up. I pushed it and we made the move to 7 days, you folks have been just amazing. And everything's gone, on fire. Our Sunday episodes are now among our best, which is just sort of amazing all by itself. And that's directly because of you. You folks are fantastic. So I am very grateful and thank you for doing what you're doing. If you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, well, you know what time it is. We got to take a sip of our preferred beverage. Man, that's good stuff. And you know what we're drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up, check them out. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. It's an absolutely great company. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is the biggest reason why we support them. For all of you out there who are veterans, thank you for your service. We love you, and we're glad that you found a home here with the Power Man. Folks, go check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, and tell them Power Man sent you. I'm going to get a sip, one more sip of this, so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. All right, here we go. Interesting new topic that we have not covered on this program before, so I'm looking forward to finding out all about this. Please welcome to the show co-founder of Men of Integrity Retreats and co-founder of the Heart Sanctuary. Please welcome Michael Tierno to the show. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. This is a unique topic. It's something we're really having a chance to talk about here, and I think our guys are going to be really interested in some alternative, methods of sort of relaxation and maybe finding themselves and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. Before we dive into all of this, tell everybody who is Michael Tierno. What brings you here? What got you into all this in the first place, and what are you about, man?
Sure. Well, my name is Michael Tierno. I'm an expanded states guide. Expanded states is basically any kind of state of consciousness that is outside the regular sort of, our regular day-to-day existence, right? So that includes breath work, meditation, psychedelics, and it can also be, some things that you don't have control. You have a high fever and you're having, and you can have an expanded states. That's possibly where a lot of religious thinking came out through the generations in cultures that didn't have even any entheogenic products or medicine products or psychedelics that are so commonly used across a lot of societies. I work with men and women in a one-on-one capacity, and I also, as you mentioned, I co-founded the Men of Integrity Retreats. It's a 4-day expanded states retreat that we have been doing for the past 4 years or so. Very proud of that work. I also run Heart Sanctuary retreats in Peru, which is uh, which we deal with ayahuasca down there, which is a brew from the Amazon that's quite powerful, quite potent. Many veterans, I'm sure, have heard about these sort of modalities because they're very hot right now in the veteran community and the first responder community, including in Texas recently with the Texas Ibogaine Initiative. Ibogaine's another plant medicine that is got a lot of traction going on in Texas right now, primarily due to support from the veteran community in terms of needing these tools to help with some of the things that happen when you come back from combat, for example.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, I've heard of some of these things that you're talking about. I'm an
Mhm.
older guy, so I've definitely heard the word psychedelics before.
Mm.
But then, the ayahuasca, I knew what that was in terms of from a lot of my veteran guys,
Sure.
and so a lot of these guys who listen to our program are um, they're not getting the health care they need, first of all. I think we all know
Yeah,
that. But they
absolutely.
are, even when they do, they've got other issues and they're looking for alternative ways to,
Hmm.
just sort of help them with
Absolutely.
different issues. And so
Yeah.
several guys have been talking about this sort of thing. Now, you run these,
Hmm.
I'm confused, so I want to make sure that I'm getting it right. The
Sure.
programs that you run with the retreats and the sanctuary, that's located where exactly?
So the Men of Integrity is located in California,
Okay.
and we have people from all over the country that come to those. And then the Heart Sanctuary is located in Peru,
Okay.
and that is just because, I mean, for me, that's where I got first connected with this work. It's ayahuasca is a very special medicine, a very special experience, and especially for one's first time, I think it's really there's something very powerful about doing this, vine and these leaves that are, they make a tea out of it, but doing it on the land on which it grows, on which it's a part of the culture. It's not a part of the entire like Peruvian and Amazonian culture, but there's specific parts where it's deeply enmeshed in the tradition. And so there's something very special about doing it, especially for the first time on the land, being on the land where the actual plants grow. So, and then the crew of folks that we have down there working, they're not like guns for hire that we have different people coming in. It's kind of a family down there. Um, so I know all these people personally, and they work at every retreat, and they are really committed to this path of healing and helping people transform themselves. So, yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, yeah, I think it does. Is this just a general, like overall holistic, sort of wellness thing that you're doing, or is it tailored towards certain, symptoms? Are there certain things that it relieves, that type of thing? What more can you tell us about that?
It's a fantastic question. So I think about using expanded states for transformation in sort of two levels, right? So the first level is when someone first gets, exposed to these things. We're usually working on trauma, right? And however that manifests, you could go to like clinical diagnoses. There's tons and tons of research being done at Stanford, at Johns Hopkins, at University of London, at NYU. All these universities are exploring the the impact in the use case for expanded states to support so many clinical diagnoses. I'm not a super diagnosis guy because that's more for the insurance companies than for actual healing, right? But whether it's PTSD, complex PTSD, there's tons of studies. MDMA was uh, actually um, almost got FDA approval a couple of years ago um, for that. And the clinical results are quite powerful in terms of helping with PTSD. There's studies on treatment-resistant depression. There's studies on all kinds of studies on addiction recovery. The only thing that, from my understanding, that doesn't super help is OCD and some of the personality disorders. But again, we're getting into labels. What I like to do is like the first sort of go around, first couple go arounds, we're really working on trauma. What are the underlying reasons for whatever diagnoses or issues one's having that's causing them to react in life or not perform optimally in life? What's the underlying sort of rationale and reasons for that? And not to get past it or to stuff it down, but really process it and work through it so that it becomes something that is there that you're aware of, but it's not operating outside of awareness. So we're bringing these kind of traumas and core memories and experiences into the light, into awareness, so that they can be processed, and then they don't quite have the hold on us as in the same way that they may have in the past. Then the next level is, basically if someone wants to, and this isn't a one and done either. It usually takes like to get through the first stage. It usually takes about 2 to 3 times, sometimes more on like with some of the more complex issues. But then we can get into like getting it more connected with like one's, you know, spirituality, connection with their divine purpose on this earth or whatever it is, and finding those kinds of things. That can't, I don't believe that really can happen truly deeply until you've kind of worked on the underlying, traumas and issues that are causing us to be in our heads versus in our hearts. Once we can get into our heart space and things have calmed down and we're feeling more peaceful, more joyous, more gratitude, more compassion for others. Once we're in that space, then then a person is more in a position where they can really connect with, their their purpose in life and things like that. When people jump right to like the spiritual stuff with these modes, I think it causes some spiritual bypassing where people start thinking, oh, everything's good, but things sometimes are not as good as they might appear, if that makes sense. You've probably heard
Sure.
the term spiritual bypass, right?
I have, yeah, but in this case, I was wondering how that applied. The it sounds like in regular therapy, you're sitting there and you're not getting any help, and you have to somehow relax and then remember and then be able to talk and be able to put into words and everything else. I'm guessing just from the research I've done prior to walking in to talk to you,
Sure.
is that this not only relaxes everybody a little bit, but it kind of helps you get in touch with that and helps you
Mhm.
remember maybe a little bit better, clears out some of the clutter. Am I
Yep.
reading this right?
Yep. So if you imagine like your being, your kind of psychological makeup, your ego, for lack of a better word, right?
Mhm.
As being formed up, as being kind of a maze. Like it's kind of like it's hard, it's complicated and it also has walls and ramparts and all these things that protect whose intention is to protect you somehow. And you built up these defenses to ignore some facets of life in order to protect something about you. And the diversity in how this works is broad, but in essence, it's always the same also in terms of whatever defenses you have. So when you're in expanded states, those defenses drop and you come right to the core of what is kind of driving those things. And oftentimes an understanding of what are the defenses that you're using to protect yourself, right? And once you have that understanding, then it's all of a sudden you know how to access, you know how to kind of maneuver through the maze. Before before having this sort of before showing the path of this maze of complexity that you have protecting your core self, it's very it can be, I don't know why I do these things. I don't know why I'm drinking so much. I don't know why I'm, can't get out of bed. I don't know why, whatever the reasons are. I don't know why I'm, scared to interact with people, whatever the issues are. I don't know why I always need to be perfect, or I have feelings of like worthlessness, or whatever they may be. These things have all kind of been designed to protect something inside. And what all of these expanded states do is they drop down those walls and give you a clear path to see what is the connection between what is the cause and what is the effect, and what do I need to do in the world in order uh to not be managed by these, essentially symptoms. But again, I don't like to be too clinical about it.
Sure. No, um, you're an expanded states guide. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, how do you get into that? What brought you from where you were into this line of work in the first place, and what makes you a guide, to kind of take people through it?
Sure. So it wasn't something I intended to do. I was like many people that are in sort of this sort of work, whether it's being expanded states or therapy or whatever, or even physicians, oftentimes they come to seek, their own healing. And then through that path, they've realized the power of it. And some of us, have talents and desires to help others. And that's how it kind of worked for me in a nutshell. But I basically went to Peru. It's a longer story, but I went to Peru to try ayahuasca, and it completely transformed my life just in one go. I was aware of all these underlying mechanisms and things that I was not aware of. I used to drink too much. I wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic, but in social situations, that was my go-to to like kind of relax the system and feel more comfortable in social settings. And one of the first things I realized that there was some kind of like this like nut of shame in there that I couldn't quite access what it was about, but it was operating. So I identified that there was some shame there, and I also understand that whatever was connected to was no longer there. So it was just experience of shame and concern and self-consciousness with, but there was no like memory tied to it really. And I was like, huh, but that's operating in me. So when I realized there was nothing that I had really to be ashamed of, that kind of just went away. And so did the reliance on alcohol and social situations. Um, got through that, worked on myself afterwards. It took all the process of integration. And then I was like, oh, there's there more. So I went back to Peru again, uh, and then continued. And I was like, wow, this is great. I'm like feeling so much more alive, so much more grateful, so much. Uh, and then the third time I went there, the the facilitators told me, hey, you don't need to come and pay anymore. You have this kind of way about you. You're making people feel comfortable. People are open around you, all these sort of, positive things that had kind of manifested over the 3 or 4 years that I'd been going to Peru. And and they said you should really consider doing this sort of work because you just have a way with people, making them feel safe and comfortable in the states and in the experience before and after. So I was like, oh, it's interesting. And I kind of felt this pull. I was always interested in psychology, um, academically. Like I went to school for psychology. So there was this kind of like enmeshment and kind of like alignment between kind of what I wanted to do and this opportunity to actually really support people and help them. And I did some coursework and some training with some people in Peru and here in the United States, and then started organically working with friends, and then started working with more and more people. Um, you know, a friend of mine, Yoni Havana, we came up with a Men of Integrity, a retreat, and have been doing that, working one-on-one with people. So it's kind of an organic process. Nothing was pushed. There's no marketing really, besides these podcasts, which we just started doing about 6 months ago. And it's all word of mouth. And it's been very, very fulfilling to both watch people go through their process and then of course getting the appreciation and like they think somehow I had something to do with it, but it's really them doing the work. So it's it's a lovely experience. I'm sure you know from your own work that when you help people, you really feel good about yourself. I mean, I think it's one of the greatest things we can do is be of service to others. So
Yeah,
really,
for sure. For
really
sure.
fit all the pieces for me.
That's awesome. The one of the things that you talk about in your bio is rites of passage for men.
Mhm.
How does what you've been talking about with this journey with ayahuasca and how does that work into rites of passage for men?
Sure. Well, one thing you and I both know is that there are no rites of passage for men in our culture,
Not
right?
anymore. Yeah,
Throughout,
absolutely.
not anymore, right? In our culture. So throughout, part of co-evolving with our human evolution was rites of passage for mostly for men, right? Where you'd go out and have to like endure some challenge, oftentimes alone, oftentimes something that's a little scary or a lot scary, depending on the culture, right? Oftentimes death is possible. You're a 14, 15-year-old boy and you're going out and have to be, in the jungle for 5 days or covered with ants or all these crazy things that people have done in the past. And these states and these rites of passage kind of like bring you from being a boy into a man, right? And we don't have that in our culture. And so there's always kind of a feeling of like, maybe you go to college, you go to the military, but no one ever gives you the pata on and says, now you're a man, right? And I think that for a lot of men, even though it's not explicitly talked about in our society, it's kind of like, something's missing. I always thought when I was a boy that someone was going to let me in on some big secret. Like now you're an adult. I'm 52 and no one's come to me, but
Right.
through my own work through plant medicine, I've had that kind of awareness of like, oh, this is what it means to be fully human. It's come via a different path, but it's still, I had to find that path for myself. And I think men are searching for that path for themselves. And so what we offer at Men of Integrity is really, we consider it a rite of passage retreat. We don't really talk about it that way to the guys because they usually recognize that after the fact. It's like, oh, I understand there's a deeper connection with their own humanity and what they're here for. So that affords an opportunity for men of any age. We have uh, uh, men as young as 24 all the way to the age of like 65 that have been to our retreats, and where they come out the other end and they say, "Oh, okay, I got a much more better understanding of what it means to be human and what it means to be a man on this planet to do what I want, what I need to do, really, what I'm called to do than I had before." So it's really important. It is a rite of passage and it is not easy, which is part of a rite of passage. If it was easy, anybody could just do it and snap their fingers. Also, I'm a man, right? Or I'm fully embodied human, right? But it takes a lot of work, and luckily, there's no actual danger to this sort of rite of passage versus some of the other ones in our history.
Excellent. The it sounds like the guiding part
Mhm.
is incredibly important
Absolutely.
in this whole process because if
Mhm.
there's got to be a line um, in between, guys wanting to loosen up and wake up and go deep and do the work,
Mhm.
or just lose themselves for a little while and not have to think about it, type of thing and numb out on, whatever it is. And so I'm assuming that the guide keeps them
Yeah.
on the right side of this and not drifting towards the wrong side of this. Am I
Okay.
right?
You are right, partially. Like you got three-quarters of it there.
All right, take me
There's no
home.
way to the one part that you have a little bit off is that there's no way to numb out, right? This is going to bring up everything. And one of the reasons why it's really critical to have a guide there is because things are going to come out that you might not be ready for. And the
Oh,
guide
wow.
keeps you safe. So there's no escaping yourself. That's the one thing. This is both the reason why people do it and then why people don't want to do it. I was in a men's group once, and one guy classically said, says, I know I need this, but I don't want to find out what's under the hood. You know, like there is no escaping yourself under these states. So, on the one hand, maybe you did something that you weren't proud of, right? And all of a sudden it's going to come into stark relief and you've been avoiding it, stomping it down, and all of a sudden it's going to come up, and all of a sudden now you're going to deal with it in that space. And sometimes that's very uncomfortable. So the role of the guide is partially to is primarily, I think, to make sure people feel that they're safe and that they can explore these issues and these processes and these experiences, these memories, these traumas, sometimes these like feelings of like enlightened lightness without feeling, without knowing that they're safe, right? So that they can actually explore and process through them. So there's no numbing out on, for example, on these things. That just doesn't exist. It's very much the opposite. The other thing the guide does is help the person actually walk through the process. So like I myself as a guide, I have like kind of two rules: zero judgment. Everybody's done stuff they're not proud of. Everybody's, have made mistakes in their life. So I find it, especially having done this work a long time, I find it really hard to judge people, right? Say like, oh, that person's bad because it's not like it's just not part of my language, and or my thinking process, but ultimate curiosity. So as they're unpacking some memory or some belief or some trauma or something they have or putting things together, I'm really curious about it. Well, tell me more about this, or what do you mean by that? And by me asking the questions in that expanded state, they're able to like unpack and really extrapolate and really get to like, what might have been just a few threads or some images, some ideas, like really put this thing out into the open so that it's there. And people talk about love and light, but we're really bringing light to these things that are really in the shadows, right? That have been in the shadows for maybe someone's entire life. And so that is the main utility of the guide, right? Is to go through these things and then help them make sense of it afterwards. Some of the stuff, some of the images, symbols, and things that come up with are a little bit like, I don't understand. I saw this, I saw a horse. Like, why is there horses in my thing? Well, maybe we can, what does a horse mean to you? Well, it means freedom, running through the wild. It says, do you feel that you're not free right now? So yeah, I feel tied down by all these things. And said, oh, okay, maybe the horse medicine is telling you that let's find ways that you can, get a little more free, for example.
Hmm.
So that's the role of the guide, but it's not, no one's, I don't think people are using this to numb out because it would be very challenging. And it's also the reason why you shouldn't do these things on your own, because things can come up that you're not ready to, that you're not in a container or a setting with which to deal with them. And it can be very scary. You can get an idea in your head that is not real or is not logical or doesn't make any sense, and think that you need to like in the moment that this is, that you're going to stop breathing or something like that, which is not the case at all, right? You're going to keep breathing all the time. These things don't work on your brainstem. Um, or even with breath work, like you can get into some pretty powerful states just by breathing a lot. And it's when these things happen, it's really important to have somebody there that knows what's going on, that's been through these experiences themselves, that can say, you're fine, keep going, keep going, keep going, or tamp it down and understands, helps the person feel safe and comfortable and able to process these things and let go really into that experience, whatever it may be.
Okay, just learned more about this than I ever thought I was going to, just in that last answer. So I appreciate it very
Mhm.
much. I had the wrong idea about it completely. And so I appreciate you, educating me and everybody else who's listening on that. I think that, um, as I've had conversations with the guys, I think Aaron Rodgers, in the NFL,
Mhm.
the quarterback,
Yep.
right? So he's talked about ayahuasca. But I think that the way it kind of gets translated is that a lot of guys think it's just some sort of more powerful, marijuana or something, type of thing. And, then you hear the word, psychedelic and you go, okay, wait a minute, that's not the same thing. And then then I start reading more about it. I'm talking to you, and now I'm like, wait a minute, what exactly is this? So,
Mhm.
this is a plant of some kind or a plant medicine that's mixed together?
Well, I mean, it depends on what level of analysis you want to look at it. So we could talk about ayahuasca, right? So ayahuasca is a combination of two plants that all plants have molecules in them, right? They all have, you take chamomile tea or you drink coffee, right? You're drinking coffee. Coffee's great. I drink coffee every day. I will be a crabby guy, unhappy guy if I don't have my coffee in the morning. I'm drinking the coffee because I love what it tastes like, um, and because it has caffeine in it, and it kind of like gives me that alert feeling in the morning that I'm looking for, right? So there's an experience to that cup of coffee. If I drink chamomile tea in the evening, there's compounds in chamomile tea or passion fruit flower or lotus root flower. All of these things have a calming effect on the body. Drink alcohol because it makes you feel kind of relaxed and loose and a little more socially lubricated. All these they're all plants I'm talking about. Each one of them is a plant. For ayahuasca, has two compounds in them, two plants, right? And each plant has its own specific compounds. One plant is called chacruna, and that has dimethyltryptamine, also known as NN-DMT. It's a visionary plant very similar to psilocybin-containing mushrooms. So psilocybin and NN-DMT are very similar, right, in terms of the experience. And then you have another plant called the ayahuasca, which is a vine that grows in the jungle, and that has something called harmine and harmaline alkaloids. Those two together produce a unique experience in folks who ingest it. Um,
Hmm.
and so yeah, so these are mostly plants, and they have been used by ancestors, basically by people in the cultures. Almost every culture, I think, except for the Inuit, have used plants for expanded states of some sort or another, whether it's Amanita muscaria in Siberia and the cold regions of northern Europe. You got ibogaine and actually a whole bunch of plants and compounds in the African continent. You have in the Amazon. I mean, they have so many plants down there that have so many kind of healing things. Pharmaceutical companies go down there and try and extract these alkaloids and convert them into pharmacological compounds for certain symptoms. In North America, you have peyote, you have mescaline, you have all kinds of mescaline, peyote. The same. There's mescaline's included in many cactuses, but you have mescaline, you have so we've been using these things historically as part of our sort of, you know, sort of experience in the world, uh, except for the last like couple hundred years where, you know, we thought, I don't know, we kind of lost connection with these things, and now they're coming back. If you really want to get a good
Hmm.
kind of like easy read, fun read primer on these things. Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind is a book. Really fun read, like enjoyable. All his books are great. And this really was probably the book that is responsible for the expanded states renaissance, excuse me, that has been coming here for the last 7 years, I think, in the world and in the West. And his book in particular gives a very nuanced, compassionate, uh, and rigorous exploration as to what some of these compounds are and uh, how they affect the mind. And it's not too sciencey or too technical, but it does, have his own experiences and how they've transformed his life. Because he went on kind of as a journalist to like, I've heard about this stuff. I don't know what it's about. Let me go exploring. And then he went and he tried all these different compounds. And as far as my understanding is, he continues to, on a semi-annual or annual basis, continue to explore his own consciousness with these compounds. So, yeah.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, and I appreciate the explanation because that's absolutely not the way I understood it. So, Thank you for the education.
Mhm.
As I was looking through some of the things that you had said and written, one thing you talk about is vulnerability and how
Mhm.
men have to find a way to be vulnerable because that's the way to create true strength.
Mhm.
All the guys I work with, that's a vulnerability might as well be a four-letter word. It's
Mhm.
something that none of us want to deal with. None of us like. We all hate that word. So you seem to be using it in a more positive text. Are you talking about just in terms of opening up to the effects of the treatment in this sort of thing,
Mm-mm.
or how
No.
does that how does vulnerability play into what you're doing, through your treats and your treatments?
That's a big question. So vulnerability, I don't think of vulnerability in a negative sense. I mean, if you're just wearing your heart on your sleeve all the time to everybody, in all cases, just, every expression, every feeling that you're having, you're just telling anybody and everybody at all times, that's not good for anybody, right?
Right.
Um, but when we are engaged with other people that we care about, love, appreciate, that we want to be connected with, right? Vulnerability has to be there or connection doesn't happen, right? With your wife, for example, like, or I don't know if you're married or not, but with your partner, your romantic
Mm.
partner, for example, like if you're holding everything close to the vest, there's no connection. You're an isolated island unto yourself, and maybe she or he, depending on your sexual orientation, whatever, the other person's maybe trying to connect or not connect, but you could be two isolated islands unto yourself, and that might work for some people. But if you want true connection, and I'm talking about on all levels, whether it be, you know, true intimacy, true, connected sexuality, true um, commitment, compassion for one another, true love really is the foundation of that is to be able to be vulnerable and feel safe with the other person so that they can understand your inner world and you can understand theirs. So, what do we do at the retreats, for example, is it's a great opportunity for guys, and this is the typical guy has not had that has come to our retreats has not had an opportunity where they've felt safe to talk about their internal narrative and what's going on with them, right?
Yeah.
So, and almost as they walk through the door, they see both modeled that they're not going to be judged for anything that they say or do or have done. That's palpable in our retreat, right? And that everybody's deeply curious. We're not going to be like, I've heard enough about you, about your stories or anything like that. We're deeply curious about each other, and they'll ask questions to us. And then our vulnerability shows is modeling how to express oneself, kindly and and fully disclosed and like open and feeling safe and oftentimes and then they get a chance to practice over 4 days. And with the expanded states, they're going to come up with all kinds of like things that they were un, unaware of, right? As we were talking about, a couple questions ago. And then all of a sudden this needs to be processed and worked through, and then they have like, how big are retreats, including the facilitators, maximum 7 people and 4 facilitators. There's a group of folks who have already gone through this, and they're going to start sharing, and they're going to like, we're going to start spitballing and working through and like, oh, I hear you. I have the same thing. I've been holding it close to my vest. You've been holding it close to your vest. Now it's out in the open. We can trade notes and like, how are we going to work this, these issues that we have as men together. So vulnerability is absolutely key to being a fully, engaged human being. So yeah, you kind of went off a little bit, but I hope that that answers the question to the most part. If you have anything more, I'd love to talk about vulnerability because it's so important.
Yeah. Do you find that guys have a hard time, getting into that? Does it take them a little while to sort of accept that and start being vulnerable in that setting, especially with guys they don't know?
You would think so, and I think that's the number one fear that guys that are coming to the retreat have. They're like, I don't know how it's going to be. Guys have a big fear of judgment, right? Of feeling
Right.
judged. And I think by the time we've done our opening ceremony, all that's kind of like, oh, okay, this is a different space. It's a fully realized like this is a different space. No one's gonna judge me here at all. Like, doesn't even look like these people know how to judge people. So, it comes very quickly. I mean, there's one guy that came that came, and he was pretty much, arms crossed, like I'm going through this retreat, but I'm not gonna. By the last day, I mean, it was all out in the open, all of his concerns, fears, thinking, beliefs, all that stuff dealt with in the past. By the fourth day, it was all out there on the table and worked through. And then he had the realization, like, why was I holding on to this in the first place? It wasn't a big deal. It's a big deal in my mind. I was holding all these things and ideas and stories I had in my, in my space because I thought that there was something to be worried about. And like, these guys aren't judging me. Maybe it's not such a big deal. So, yeah, I think that's the number one reason why men don't go to these or hesitant to go, or they're worried about when they have decided to go. And it's also, its primary focus is like, hey man, we're all humans.
Hmm. All right. I mean, it sounds like you've had quite a bit of good, well, at least some really good results. I mean, with this, the way that you're going through it, and you're very positive about it, and everything else. So, um,
The results have been like really like crazy. Like, if it was just mediocre kind of results, I would not be as excited about it. It wouldn't be as, there would be no little enthusiasm for me for mediocrity, right? Or even like, you know, average. Oh, it's pretty good. It's good as other stuff. Like the fact that they're such, you know, beautiful beings that come through this thing and you get to know them and they come out like, all right, I'm ready to, I'm handling things a lot differently and going out of this thing than I was before. And then we don't just, another thing that we do is we're connected to all these guys that have been through the retreats. We have a Telegram group. People are banging. We have like a hotline. I'm going through this issue right now. And then people are giving support and offering and stuff like that. Even if they don't have the support at home, we still do our best to maintain connectivity, have meetups. We do an annual nature spiritual retreat. We have people coming off from all over the country to do this next to this retreat that's only available to the guys that have been in the first retreat. So people that you've only seen on Zoom and stuff like that, we're meeting up. We're going camping for 3 days and having some fun and connecting and continuing the journey.
I'm glad you brought that up about Zoom because I was wondering if this is only done in person or if you do online service for folks.
Yeah, the actual experiences are only done in person. So,
Okay.
and there's some folks out there that are trying to do some of these stuff on Zoom, and I think it's the worst idea, like the worst idea, because sometimes people go through challenging moments and they actually literally need just a handheld, right? Because something is going on, maybe some prior abuse, death of a parent, something that they didn't get to say, and there's a lot of emotion there, and they just want that stability of like, or being able to like just look somebody in the eye when they're going through a hard time and helping them down-regulate their nervous system, right? This is how I want you to breathe, and just like looking at them so that they have something to track, because sometimes these things can be a little disorienting, a little bit confusing. So having somebody there in the room that knows what they're doing, that can help them down-regulate their nervous system, so they okay, we're going through this experience, and then get them on the other side. Super, super, super important. Now, the support and integration calls. Sure, it'd be great if we can all meet up, but we have guys all over the country, so we can't do that, and our attempt to do that is to do the camping retreat for guys who may know each other, have become friends online and through our Zoom calls that we have, once a month. We have Zoom meetups where people get on that are in the community and continue to like work through things, what's going on with you, that kind of thing. And then they become friends, and then here's an opportunity to like meet the people that you've been talking to and have another lovely experience together and connect even more. So that's another thing you didn't mention, but like guys are lacking connection, man,
Yeah.
uh, for the most part. And so this is like our intention for this isn't just to like run a retreat and see you later. It's to actually have a community of guys that now at least have something in common. We have so much in common, right? But now that they know that they have something in common, they've all been to the retreat, and so they can talk about those experiences and what they learn, and what they're continuing to process and unpack. And yeah, so community is so important.
That's a great aspect of this because yeah, I mean the average guy is living that life of, quiet desperation, so they say, right? So,
Yeah.
most of us feel very alone and really do need some kind of camaraderie, brotherhood, connection,
Absolutely.
something. So, if that's kind of at the cornerstone of this, that's great.
Mhm.
Other than needing connection, if there's we got guys at home right now who are going to be listening to this and they're going to be going, I wonder if this is right for me.
Mhm.
Now, is there a way to kind of put it into words? If you're dealing with this, then this might be right for you. Or if you're feeling this way, then this might be right for you. Any of that type of thing?
Yeah. If you're feeling disconnected, if you're feeling that you are reacting to things, highly triggered about stuff, whatever it may be, there's always a reason,
Hmm.
right? If you're having issues with your romantic partnership, stay in a relationship, or you're dissatisfied with your relationship for some reason, or you don't feel you're stepping up, if you are struggling with, you know, um, you know, any kinds, we don't do heart addictions, of course, but if you like gambling, porn, marijuana, those kinds of things. I mean, we have like crazy success on that. Alcohol, um, not so much like hard drugs. I think for that, you really want to go to because of the medical sort of aspect to some of those harder addictions, you really want to go to a treatment facility. Like in Mexico, there's a place that does ibogaine down there. That's highly recommended that
Okay.
we've had guys have gone there and then come to the retreat afterwards. Um, but basically, or like even like purpose, or like I don't know what I'm doing in my life. Like, what's the point, or kind of things like that. Dissatisfaction of any kind is a dissatisfaction of any kind in life is a result of something, right? It's like when you think about it, the very fact that we are here, we came, like, where did we come from? Like, as a being, where did you, like, one day you were here, one day you weren't here, and all of a sudden you're here talking to me on this podcast? Like, that's crazy, right?
Right.
Isn't it great? Isn't that beautiful? And then if you're not even just enthralled by the fact that your mere existence is is a miracle, right? And that we're having this conversation, then there's a reason for that dissatisfaction. So what are those reasons? And then uncover those. If you've had hard times through an experience, first responders, veterans, just people living in life through, having parents that didn't quite know how to like deal with one, right? And maybe weren't um, didn't give us some of the things that we long for as children. Like those are all in the scope of things that can be supported and helped and addressed through this work.
Interesting. Interesting. I appreciate you bringing all this over here today. I'm sure you have some success stories. And obviously, you can't give names or maybe particular situations, but is there a good success story you can kind of share with folks where it was like, man, I can't believe this guy got over this and was able to handle this, that type of thing.
Oh,
Just to give them an example.
yeah, first let me give you some numbers. Like we've kind of gone through the thing. So about 90% of the guys have gone to the retreat have given up some self-sabotaging behavior, whether it's alcohol, drugs, porn, marijuana, gambling, or something like that. It's 90% and have for good, as long as we know them from the 4 years, right? 75% have given up two or more behavior. So in terms of that, that's just very technical, very clinical. But in terms of like, I mean, saved marriages, a big part of our work is like understanding I won't say the differences between men and women, but understanding that women look at the world slightly different, or very differently than men do, and for some fundamental reasons. And so some of the things that we hear our feminine, partners sort of that they feel that are maybe are the women in our life feel is super important, and we just don't see it. Explanation as to why that is, and how to operate with that, and how to explain that we also see the world differently. So we offer a model, call it polarized relationships that kind of really, really is helpful for guys to engage with and realize where they're missing the mark, where they're missing what's important, the fundamental important. I'll just give you the punchline, right? So you try and not keep it here, but the most important thing for women is trust and safety, right? Straight up.
Okay.
50% of the population just is 30% stronger than you. So the resources and all that kind of stuff. So if you can, so a lot of the things we as men don't have that same 50% of the population is 30% less strong than us, right? So we're not walking around worried about like that somebody, can take us on, right? You're a big dude, I'm a big dude. Right? It's
Right.
like it's not something that enters like going to the car in a parking lot at night is not, in a medium just a regular city isn't something that I'm like, worried that someone's going to jump out at me, right? But for I want to say most women, but then we're talking about like 90% of women, this is a daily concern, a fear for their life in some way. And so
Right.
when they seem like, oh, you're making too much of a big deal about this, it's like because it is a big deal for them. And then how to like communicate and talk in certain ways. I mean, it's the whole kind of part of the retreat is explaining these things and trying to incorporate them. But definitely have saved some marriages. Definitely have had some marriages realize some guys realize that that this isn't working or coming back, and then having a better conversation about the ending of a relationship rather than the type of conversation that might have been had, and so things can like dissolve more amicably. That's a very small couple guys. A lot of people have just interface in the world. So those are some stories, drop-in addictions, all that kind of stuff. The number one thing that I love to hear is when people come back to work and they haven't told anybody because about this thing, and they say, you know what? Everybody's asking me, what did I do last weekend? Because I seem so much better. I seem so much more chill. I seem so much more relaxed. I seem so much more at peace. Um, and they haven't told anybody what they've done. All of a sudden they're getting this feedback. So I don't know what's different. Like I feel different, but I'm not telling anybody I went on this thing because, for whatever reason, again, vulnerability or like,
Right.
but people are noticing. And then that sort of interface where when people notice that you're more relaxed and less like maybe like jumpy or like going to jump down their throats or something, all of a sudden they become nicer and then you become nicer. And you're kind of like this loop. All of a sudden, the world seems better, right? Because I'm better. I got a funny story for you.
Okay.
On my second ayahuasca retreat in Peru that I went down there as a participant, I went with a friend of mine, and he tells me like he works with his dad, right? So if he's hearing this, he'll know that I'm talking about him. So him and his dad have business together, and he was saying like, oh man, my dad and I were always fighting. We're always locking horns. We're always like, disagreeing about this and the other thing. And when I came back, he said, Mike, the fighting stopped. And I realized I must be the asshole because I was the one that went to ayahuasca and changed. My dad didn't do shit. He was still at home. Like he didn't do anything, but I came back different. And all of a sudden we stopped fighting. It must have been me to some extent, to some great extent. And it's really probably both of them. It's the dynamic that has changed, not necessarily he has changed, the dynamic has changed, so thus they both change. But that's a funny story that I was like, so I was the asshole.
Amazing what you find out when you start looking at yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, right?
Right. So, just real quick, how long are the retreats? I didn't ask you that either. I apologize.
Sure. Retreats are 4 days. We start them on a Friday. We're back. We're done on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then everybody leaves on Tuesday.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, we try and make it easy for people to. I mean, we would love to do a longer retreat, but people have work, obligations, kids, all this kind of stuff. So we really pack. I can't tell you that there's not a lot of downtime if we're not doing the transformative work, the actual expanded states, then we're unpacking those states. And if we're not doing that, then we're eating, talking, and or doing some of the workshops because we have a whole bunch of workshops that we also run as part of the retreat. So there is downtime, but it's not like there's not a lot of downtime. There's a lot of movement, which is good. Keep things moving, keep things on time.
Excellent. Now, if people want to find out more about this, they contact you, they find out more how and where.
You can go to my website, which is michaeltiernoguide.com, or you can go to moi.community if you're specifically looking for the retreats. But the best thing to do is to hit that little calendar, make an appointment button, and then we can talk about because of course everybody that wants to do it, sometimes people are on medications or they have certain things that don't qualify them. And so we have to like, address those issues, whatever they may be, but really make sure that the person, whoever is coming either to see me one-on-one, men or women, or coming to the retreat right now, men, but we will be starting a women's circle going forward with women facilitators that are trained in this sort of in these modalities and who are also in alignment with the things that we are communicating and teaching. So the best thing to do is to just set up an appointment. We get on Zoom like this, we talk, see what's going on, and see if it's a good fit. Um, but most people qualify, most people are good, but we just have to make sure that, safety is number one priority, right? So we've got to make
Sure.
sure that there's no reason why someone might not do well at it. And yeah, so that's what I got to say.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. We'll have all that in the show notes too for
Mhm.
everybody, of course. All right, Michael, let me just kind of let you wrap things up here a little bit. I'm going to give you the floor. We've talked about a lot. I mean, we've unpacked a ton in this entire, industry over here that
Mhm.
I've learned a lot today. So in that vein, is there anything I didn't ask you? Is there anything that we talked about you want to double down on? And if not, then is there maybe a nugget or a leave behind you want to leave for, listeners after having heard all this work that you're doing?
Sure. I think the thing that feels most resonant right now, and it wasn't, you told me you were going to ask this question. It wasn't going to be my answer then, but is about connection, right? And the real sorrow in my heart that in this culture that we're in right now, we are missing so much connection. And I think that something like the retreat or working with me or working with you is one step to kind of soften a little bit so that we can find connection in more places. So we can be a little more open and find things that we connect with others so that we don't feel so alone in this society. And it's really heartbreaking to hear some of the stories of guys that like don't have anybody that they can talk to. And while that's not the primary focus of this, because if it was just our community, then now you're entrenched in our community and we're your only friends. That's not good. But giving people the tools so that they can find connection and deeper meaning and purpose in their lives is such an important part of this work and something that I really want to 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 encourage people to not be so judgmental of themselves, whether they do this stuff or not, right? Just like give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little peace, and take a few chances with people to soften and connect with them and see what you have in common and see if you can find you know, find some people to pal around with because we all need that. We all need friends. We did not evolve as, single people on a mountain isolated from others. We are longing for connection. We need connection. And it's such an important thing. So connection and brotherhood is so important. And I just want to kind of like put a pin in that as the importance, beyond the scope of what we've been talking about. Like I just want that for more people that don't have it.
I love that, man. Great way to wrap us up. Appreciate it very much. Very pertinent. Michael Tierno, co-founder of the Heart Sanctuary, co-founder of the Men of Integrity Retreats. Michael, thank you for coming on today, for bringing all this to our listeners and giving them all some new options on how to maybe move forward in their lives. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you, Rory. Appreciate you. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
You
It's
got
been
it.
fun.
Folks, it's been another episode of the Power of Man podcast. And the reason that we bring these powerful men on here with these powerful messages is because we are united in supporting you in regaining your power to be a better provider, a better protector, a better leader tomorrow than you are today. Your power in trying to become a better husband, a better father, a better man tomorrow than you are today. Folks, the reason that we want that for you is because you matter, because you have value. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.